What is going on, Jason? It is fantastic to speak with you after a beautiful win on Monday night. I mean, Jason, we come together. The name of the episode is State of the Franchise. Tell me right now, what's the state of Jason? What's the state of how are you feeling right now today, Jason?
I mean, it's easier to talk about wins than it is losses. And when you win that decisively on national television against a rival, it's great. This week has been so much fun. I mean, it's Wednesday and nothing but optimism going into Sunday. You know, you don't want to overlook the team that is next up, but I mean, I'm just going to enjoy this for a few days because wins are easier to talk about than losses, and hasn't been really nice around here. People are really, kind of tense and stuff. So I think that was a fun win, and the entire fan base needed that.
100%. The 49ers obviously come out with a win on Monday night, 31-10 against the LA Rams. Let's start with on the offensive side. What did you see from the offense? What were some of your takeaways from what you saw? And we'll go from there.
I mean, it was what we thought this offense would be starting week one. Pound the ball down your throat and quick passes, everything. The ball got out on time because obviously you're worried about the right side with no McGlinchey. You don't want to call deep passes down the field, and that doesn't make sense, right? You just want to get the ball out quickly, and the offense executed flawlessly. Like the one thing that we said the 49ers needed to do going into this game was do something they hadn't done all year, which is play a complete game, and that was as close to a complete game as you got. So, I mean, that's what we envisioned in week one. Like ground and pound, make big plays, stay ahead of the sticks, stay on schedule on third down, all of those things, and get the ball in your playmakers' hands. Also, Deebo Samuel's got to start being talked about in the MVP conversation. I understand that he's not going to win it. Quarterbacks win that. I understand that. But, man, can you really name a player that has more of an impact and is carrying their team right now at this point than Deebo Samuel that's not a quarterback?
I mean, Deebo Samuel's putting up phenomenal numbers this year. I mean, just in this game alone, he had 5 receptions, 97 yards for a touchdown, but he also added running back to his wide receiver title as he's running out of the backfield. He was also able to take 5 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel's really grown into his own. I think Jimmy Garoppolo talked about it today at the podium, talking about how going into camp, that wide receiver room was kind of wide open in regards to leadership. And he said that this year, Deebo Samuel really kind of stepped up and became not only the vocal leader, but leading by example. And would you say that we're seeing the fruits of that labor kind of basically transition into this season? Because you see the numbers he's putting up, man. It's wild.
Yeah, you and I were at camp, and it was apparent that he was the best player on the field, and it just translated. And that's it. I mean, it was something that I believe Deebo Samuel heard all the whispers, heard everyone talking about extension of the running game, essentially a running back. And, as Michael Jordan says, I took that personally, and that's great, and it translated immediately from what we saw in camp. He was baking whoever was in front of him. Right now, he's just on another planet. He is 21 yards away from being the first 49ers wide receiver with 1,000 yards since Anquan Bolden, literally the person that he has comped to all the time. He will have that by the end of the first quarter on Sunday. Insane.
It is absolutely insane, and he's just playing at a completely another level. Obviously, the 49ers are doing a really good job. Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan scheming him the ball, and we're seeing kind of the fruit of that labor. Not only that, talk a little bit about Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell showed up with 27 carries, 91 yards. We found out later that he broke his finger in the game, had surgery, kind of TBD on if he will be available against the Jags or not. But he played they didn't really specify when the injury occurred, but essentially Elijah Mitchell went through the entire game not the entire game, but went through the game with a broken finger at one point, didn't say a word, and just kept chugging. Jimmy Garoppolo talked about him today and his toughness. What have you seen from Elijah Mitchell so far?
That he's getting it done in different ways. So I posted the chart from Next Gen Stats, and usually outside zone is exactly where, oh goodness gracious, Jesse. Usually outside zone is where the 49ers want to attack. But in this game, Elijah Mitchell got all the tough yards in between the tackles. And that is, 27 for 91 doesn't necessarily blow your socks off, right? But at the same time, he kept the 49ers with those tough yards. He was acting like the bell cow that we thought Trey Sermon would be, and he was keeping them on schedule on third downs. I was just as impressed with this game as I was the games where he was going for 135 yards and a touchdown. The toughness and understanding the assignment of, all right, this isn't going to be the glamorous game because this is not where we can attack them outside. You're going to have to be in between the tackles, and 27 for 91 again isn't going to blow you away, but I was impressed with his tough running, and that's just one facet of his game, and he's showing how versatile he is. What a steal in the 6th round it looks like Elijah Mitchell is.
Absolute steal from Mobile to the Bay Area, Jason. We watched that kid ball out at the Senior Bowl, and it's wild to see him doing it here in the Bay Area, and it's really fun to see. But we also got to see Jeff Wilson come back. He got limited touches, but this is the first real usage that we saw from Jeff Wilson. What were some of the things that you saw from Jeff, and could you see a role where Jeff Wilson kind of takes a bigger one against the Jags, potentially with the injury to Elijah Mitchell?
I do, and I was actually really intrigued with the way that he was positioned and lined up. So Deebo Samuel was in the backfield a bunch, but they had Jeff Wilson lined up at the tight end position off of the line, and for blocking. And it was really just a credit to how versatile he is as well, too. So I think that obviously he was active 2 weeks ago, didn't get any run because Kyle Shanahan didn't feel like he was ready. Obviously, he got some run this week. Looked like that guy who runs angry, gets into that dark place as usual, but I could definitely see his role increasing. At the same time, I don't think that they're going to go away from Elijah Mitchell just because he's done it week after week after week. I mean, they gave him the ball 27 times. They ran it 44 times. And that right there is the ultimate sign of confidence and in a guy
100%.
who's growing. So if he's healthy and he's ready to go and they feel like that finger is not going to be an issue, I still think that Elijah Mitchell carries the bulk of the load. But I would suspect that Jeff Wilson is going to see more action because he actually does a great job in the passing game and he's a great pass protector. So on third down, I could definitely see him being on the field more.
I would say that one of the things that I really, really liked for Jeff Wilson, obviously only had 10 carries, so it's limited touches. But in my kind of notes that I take when I'm kind of breaking down certain plays, I have 3 times, I believe, buttery in regards to describing Jeff Wilson's vision in basically a phone booth. He created a lot of those yards. I mean, 28 off 10 carries. It's not a number that's jumping off the stat sheet to you, right? But when you go back and watch how he got those yards, he did a lot of things from a vision standpoint that although Elijah Mitchell has been fantastic, I definitely would swing the vision towards Jeff Wilson. So I'm excited to see those two actually combined and see what they become. I'm really excited for Jeff Wilson. I don't know what the usage will look like, but excited to see what he could potentially become as a role player in this offense. And obviously the running backs, they got to run behind someone, right? They got to run behind some offensive linemen. And this is a big game for a lot of different reasons. But let's go left to right. Tell me what you thought about Trent Williams and just the whole vibe of Trent. What's the vibe, Jason? Tell me the vibe, please.
Trent is the GOAT, man. I mean, look, I no disrespect to Joe Staley, but how did you upgrade the left tackle position? Seriously.
Thanks.
And I mean, again, it's not flashy. Offensive line play is usually not flashy, not something that's pointed out. The reason that you never hear Trent Williams' name is because he's putting men on their face. He's putting men on their back effortlessly. And you never hear pressures, anything like that. I believe right now he is the highest graded. And of course, PFF is not the Bible, but it fits my narrative, so I'm going to run with it. He is the highest graded player right now on the offensive side of the ball for any team. And I think the rating is something like 99.999, something crazy like that. Like he's literally on pace to do something that has never been done. So Trent Williams, you don't have to talk about him. I don't want to hear any talk about any other left tackle in the game because they're not Trent. And I just stop. Please just stop. I don't want to hear about Bakhtiari. I don't want to hear about who's the other who's the kid Laramie Tunsil. Stop it. Everybody just stop it. Relax. You guys are all just racing to get to second. You're not going to be anywhere near Trent. It's not going to happen. Not happening. Right next to him, Laken Tomlinson's been great too.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was just going to say it's basically Trent's league. Everyone's just trying to be like Trent. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody's just trying to catch up to be number 2. You're all racing to be number 2. Laker Tomlinson's been great too. And a lot of that obviously has to do with the fact that you have never have to clean up anything on the other side. You know that I mean next to you, right next to you. You know that
Right.
that Trent's going to dominate whoever's in front of him, and he's been great as well. Alex Mack was fine, and you know what? For the right side, look, we all know how I feel about Tom Compton, but he was fine. And I think the most unfortunate
It's
part of this
okay.
game is that, yeah, I have the most unfortunate part is that Jalen Moore gets injured, so we really don't even have a beat on how he really was doing. I did see Aaron Donald kind of school him a little bit on a quick move where Jalen Moore was
There's a
just like,
couple of them.
yeah, where he was like,
There's a couple of
trying to
them.
block air. So I mean, again, but you have to take those, right, because you want the kid to develop, right? It's not the same thing as a veteran getting beat. This is somebody who's literally just moving over to another side and trying to learn. So Brunskill, for whatever reason, man, I don't know what it is, and I know that it was a bit of a meme. But my goodness, man, Aaron Donald, where are you, bro? Well, what happened? What happened? Why does Brunskill own you, buddy? Can we talk about it? I mean, I know you don't know. I don't know. I know you don't know Debo Samuel, but do you know Brunskill? Like, do you know Brunskill, right? Because he's just
I
I don't
do.
get it. I don't get it, man. What is it about Brunskill? And I mean, this might just be a perfect example of someone's technique lining up and giving you fits. And that's just how it is, right? I mean, I don't think that anybody would confuse Daniel Brunskill with one of the better right guards in the game or anything like that. But he just matches up well and he just rises to the occasion. Sometimes you play up to the opponent. And I think he enjoys dominating Aaron Donald because he likes the jokes. And I've been having a blast with it, honestly. I gotta eat a bunch of crow for this game. Because one, I didn't pick the 49ers to win. Two, I said you're crazy if you think you own the Rams. That's Jared Goff. Look, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, don't matter. The 49ers just own the Rams. And Daniel Brunskill owns Aaron Donald. I don't know what to say. I don't even know if I can put it in an analytic way or be an analyst about it. It's just he owns the man. Like, what are we supposed to say at this point? And I mean, I'm interested to get your takes because obviously you know better about offensive line. You actually got to watch the tape, so you could tell me, I think, what you think is going on because I have no words for it. I don't.
I love it. I'm so happy as just a content creator, as a O-line enthusiast, as a Dan Brunskill enthusiast. Just makes my day. I'm just so happy that I can just post Daniel Brunskill's face all over the place, and everyone knows what it means. And it's so beautiful because I talked to Dan in this offseason. We did the interview and everything, and that was one of the questions that we talked about. We talked about the way he plays against Aaron Donald, and that's what we talked about. We talked like, dude, you're a legend on my page. Like we lift you and we celebrate you for how you play against. I consider Aaron Donald, and I'm sure you hold him in just as high regard, but as one of the arguably best trench players to ever step foot on a field. Like that's just how good Aaron Donald is. And what we were talking about is he said it. He's like, man, if I could just play every game like I'm playing against Aaron Donald, it would that's it. And you spoke to it about up to your competition, the mental side of things, the way the human element of football and how it is. You have a guy in front of you who is the most dominant football player likely to ever play, and you either match it or you get washed. And Daniel Brunskill, we talked about it. He says he just has this ability to rise to the occasion when it comes to playing him. Jimmy Garoppolo spoke his praises at the podium today. Kyle Shanahan as well. Didn't want to go too far, essentially referencing poking the bear. I'll do all the poking the bear around here.
Mhm.
But one skill, you could tell, dude, he just had a different juice. I watched all the offensive line back already. He just had a different juice. He's had a juice in this game that he hasn't had all year. And that's again talking about like what you hit on, playing up to the competition. It happens. These are athletes, the competitors. So when you put another B in front of them, sometimes it just raises your level a little bit, and that's sometimes why competition breeds success. It's that whole kind of microcosm of the human element of football. So Brunskill had a beautiful game, but let's see if we can keep it rolling against the Jags. I love that I think it's like four. I think this is the fifth matchup that Daniel Brunskill has had against Aaron Donald, in which he's owned every single matchup. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Some things can't be
Uh,
explained. So, like sometimes you just can't explain it.
You
Did we
just
lose
can't.
Brad?
But
Did we
what are
lose him?
your thoughts on I know Jalen Moore, we talked about it and we touched on it a little bit. He got in, he got beat up a little bit by Aaron Donald. But do you see an opportunity where if he's healthy, he can actually come out and start, or what do you think where do you think they go with that?
I think you go back to him just to see because again, you don't know. And again, you just have to temper your expectations and understand that he's going to take his lumps. I mean, Josh Allen is on the other side there, so it doesn't get much easier.
Right.
And it's again about what you can scheme up. And if you know that, and what Kyle Shanahan did this week was okay. It didn't matter that if Tom Compton was there or Moore was there. You knew that you didn't want to have long developing routes down the field because then you have to make guys block for longer, and that's why you execute the game plan to quick throws over the middle, get Jimmy into a rhythm, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, keep that pass rush at bay, and that's
Mhm.
probably going to be the way that you're going to see this offense roll for the rest of the year because of the right side, because of the unknown. Unless Jalen Moore just takes some big steps and you start to see, hey man, this kick and pass block, we can change it up. We can take some shots down the field. We can try that. Until then,
There you go.
I think that the best thing to do to help build confidence and to build a correct game plan is to stick to what you just did. And obviously, the Jaguars don't have as a formidable offense as the Rams do, but who wouldn't want to dominate time of possession 40 minutes, to like 20 minutes and keep an offense on the other side of the field and just wear out a defense mentally and physically. So I think that's the game plan you'll see going forward. Like unless we see some big strides from Jalen Moore.
Yeah, I like your point though about because I think where we see Jalen Moore, and again, why I was always hesitant about putting him at right guard, he has some work to do in the run game. He comes in plug and play as a pass blocking tackle in the league. I think he's really good at pass blocking. However, he still has some growth to do in the run game, and we'll see what happens. But I like your point about understanding your personnel. Maybe that gives you a couple opportunities for more 5 to 7 step dropbacks and hitting these quick 3 steps and let it rip. So that's always definitely a possibility. But let's talk about another guy who is well loved by offensive linemen, but he's not. He's a tight end. His name is George Kittle. What were your thoughts
Oh,
on George Kittle and how he played, and especially with the bright lights shining on him?
I mean, back-to-back weeks of touchdowns from George Kittle. Oh, hey there. Imagine
Did
that.
you know that
Targeting
was the
him.
first time in his career he's had back-to-back
Yeah.
touchdowns? I
Yes.
did not
That's
know that.
it's
That was wild.
incredible. Incredible. I mean, look, the guy is no one would ever say that, anything other than the only thing that you can probably say bad about George Kittle is that, he just gets dinged up, but the energy he brings, the blocking, still an elite tight end at the position in terms of pass catcher. Get the boy the ball, man. You know that he can cook. And I mean, there's not really much I can say. I'm really happy to see him out there. The offense looks different. Jimmy Garoppolo plays different when he's there. And it just makes this offense more lethal when you have him there, not only from the run standpoint, but just being able to line him up and watch him cook. So, I mean, I'm happy for George, man. I'm happy to see he's back. Happy to see him getting in the end zone because I felt like that was a lot of people's gripes with him. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, I would just say, hey, man, oh, hey there. Just stay healthy, buddy. We know that you can ball. We know it.
Absolutely. Von Miller's probably still licking his chops after getting completely demolished and depleted by George Kittle. Absolutely love to see that. He was blocking his tail off. As you know, that's the key to my heart is just blocking real tough. So I absolutely love that from George, and I agree. Continue to work him into the game plan, and especially with the emergence of Debo Samuel. And I imagine safeties are going to start to really have to pay attention to this guy, and they're going to have to start bracketing and doubling and doing those types of things. So there is an opportunity for guys like Kittle to maybe get more opportunities, maybe even Brandon Aiyuk. What were your thoughts of Brandon Aiyuk? Again, Aiyuk watch has been a topic of discussion for the entire year. How do you think he's progressing after having his initial breakthrough moment a couple weeks ago? Do you still feel like he's on that track for success?
Yeah, and the game plan for this week didn't call for a pass heavy game plan. Obviously, it was get the ball in the hands of Debo Samuel, and Ayuk made catches when he needed to. And that's the sign of a professional, right? When your number's called, no matter what it is, you make plays, and he did. And this was an understated game for him, but you have to remember the game plan. It was, we're going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And when that's working, you don't get away from that. Didn't see the kid pouting, anything like that. There was nothing that I saw from this game that would imply any sort of decline or anything like that. He was just fine. And that's another thing is this offense just becomes so much harder to defend when everybody's healthy. And I think that Aiyuk played fine, and he made a big catch when they needed it. And it also helps because the way that Shanahan was keeping his guys away from Jalen Ramsey the entire game was just beautiful. Lining up Deebo Samuel in the backfield, moving him at the last moment to get him away from Ramsey, having Ramsey run and cover Jawan Jennings. It was masterful. I think that Shanahan did just this was the Shanahan chef kiss game. This was, like I did my live stream after, and someone left the best comment under, and it said Kyle Shanahan versus McVay playing Madden. And it said, Kyle says, hey, I'm going to run it again. Are you ready? And McVay says, Mom, he's doing it again, Mom. So yeah, I mean, it was just a great job. And again, when you get everybody to buy in and get everybody to just wait for their opportunity, wait for their number to be called, and you can execute like that, I don't think that there's anything bad you could say about what Brandon Aiyuk did.
Absolutely. And I love that reference that you made. And I think it's true. And I think Kyle Shanahan deserves a little bit of credit for getting back to what this team is good at. And it's running the football and playing possession and being creative off the run game. And it just feels like they've been trying to almost reverse engineer the offense up until this point. And it's been kind of shaky. They've done a lot of stuff out of shotgun. Much more than they typically have with the play actions, especially. There was a point of emphasis of them doing play action out from Jimmy under center. Seemingly it correlated to them being successful. So hopefully that's kind of a trend that we continue to see of them continuing to stick with at least what we and I perceive to be their standard offense, which is run first, play action, and all that kind of stuff that you can build off of it. But let's switch gears to the defensive side of the football. Talk to me about Jimmy Ward, my guy.
Oh. Hi, guys. What you gonna say now? What are you gonna say now?
Tell him.
You can't say nothing. And you cannot tell me that even if you didn't get those interceptions, that you don't get it. Get what he brings. He's the leader of this defense now. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it. The leader
he
of the
might
defense.
Be, bro. He might be.
The leader of the defense. Okay? At someone else about it. Don't at me about it. Why does this defense look so much different? Jimmy Ward walks around with a swagger, with a confidence instilled. Jimmy Ward is the playmaker on his defense. And for all those interception people, I'm glad that this happened on national television so we can put that away. Yeah. But also, you realize that when they never throw the ball at you, you can't get interceptions. And you realize that interceptions, a lot of them have to do with luck. Now, the first interception was an arm punt. The second interception was off a drop.
It was.
Yep. The second interception was off a drop. You realize that interceptions do not mean anything, really, because sometimes it's just where the ball bounces, or the quarterback is comfortable testing you because they're not that scared of you. And I think that's the point that I want to make, is Jimmy Ward doesn't get interceptions or pass breakups because he wipes out the route. And they don't even look his way. You do not get tested. That's the difference. Glad he got the interception so you can get that narrative up out of here. But you see that second interception had to do with the drop. That wasn't a ball. I mean, the ball was there, and obviously you have to have ball skills to pick that thing out the air and then run it back. But let's not make it seem like he's undercutting routes or anything like that. I'm just glad that those happen and the way that they happen, just to show you how fluky interceptions can be. And I think that more than anything, stop evaluating safeties altogether by interceptions. Jamal Adams got an interception. Does that make him good? I'm not saying that about Jimmy Ward. I'm just saying that he's much better than Jamal Adams, and he does much more. I'm just happy that this happened so people can just shut up already about the interceptions, because I'm tired of it. And that was never the way that you should have been evaluating Jimmy Ward.
100%. And I even put a lot of eggs into Jimmy Ward's basket in regards to like how talented he is and what he's capable of doing. Um, but it was also a bit of a shock too to see like, wow, he has really had a huge impact to the defense this year. Obviously, throughout his tenure, especially since 2019. But Jimmy Ward this year he's been locked tight. He's been uh, absolutely clamps when it comes to one-on-one press man coverage, whether it's tight ends, big slots, what have you. I think Fred Warner said it either today or the other day, but just essentially putting a lot of respect on Jimmy Ward's name, talking about how he's probably one of the premier or one of the best man-on-man DBs in the league right now, just with how he locks everything up. And to your point, it's really hard to get interceptions when they don't throw it your way. And I get you the exact point you're making. It's like we made a big deal about Jimmy Ward getting two interceptions, but it wasn't like he undercut a route or he like, you know, all due respect to Jimmy. I'm not trying to take anything away
No.
from him at all. It's just putting more emphasis on the actual other plays that he made and the small things that he does well that don't get the credit that he probably deserves. So Jimmy Ward has been absolutely phenomenal. What did you see from Talanoa Hufanga? And also, I don't know if you saw the quote or you heard it. Kyle
Mm-hmm.
Shanahan had an interesting quote today.
Mm-hmm.
I've never's probably a strong word, but from my recent memory, I can't remember Kyle Shanahan coming out talking about a veteran in the sense of they're from injury, but it's not guaranteed that they're getting the starting job back. What was your thoughts? Again, it's kind of a two-parter, but thoughts on the Tart situation with Tart coming back from injured reserve and how Hufanga has played up until this point.
Yeah, and clearly you can see how much having Jimmy Ward helps Hufanga because last week, I mean, against Arizona, they were giving up plays over their head, and when you have someone on the back end who can clean up and understands and communicates, it's so much easier for Hufanga to just get downhill and play with instincts, which is what he needs to be, right? You can't really put him in positions where he has to cover, right? Like that's not the thing, and that's what Tart does better. Now, if you're asking me, I think Tar should get back in there. But he's obviously coaching. I mean, coach is obviously impressed by what Hufanga is doing, and they obviously want to get him reps because they even got him in on some 3 safety looks. They've been dying to get him reps. So that's fine. In terms of what he said too about Dre Greenlaw and Aziz Al-Shaair, is like, I don't know if we can get Aziz Al-Shaair off the field. And I've been saying that since week one.
Yes, you have.
Aziz Al-Shaair is playing way too well for you to just turn it back over to Dre Greenlaw at this point. I just want people to get 2019 out of your mind. And this is what I mean by that. Those plays are iconic, right? They're great plays.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the stop, amazing. There is more to it than that. And after that, he just has not been the same player. He has regressed on tape. It's there. Week one, he gets a pick six. I just had someone on Twitter say, well, he got a pick six in week one. The ball fell right in his hands. Now, he ran it back. That's great, and obviously that's not easy. But when you watch the week one film, he's specifically out of position in the run game. And Fred Warner doesn't call people out. But there's tape of Fred Warner going back at Greenlaw and saying, dude, what the hell was that? Where were you supposed to be? Why are you you're not in your gap? So when I see Aziz Al-Shaair, here's the stat. KP of Niners Nation posted it. Aziz Al-Shaair has 14 tackles for loss this year. Dre Greenlaw has 15 tackles for loss in his career. Now tell me who's playing better.
Whoo! I'm going to say Al-Shaair, my guy.
You just can't turn it over if he's playing better. I mean, that's 14
what do you
TFLs.
think?
This is it. I'll read it right now. I'm gonna find the tweet right now. But KP is in agreement too that it just can't be turned right over. Yes, Al-Shaair has 14 tackles for loss this season. Greenlaw has 15 in his career. What more stats?
I mean, Al-Shaair has taken this humongous step forward. You kind of saw it the last 2 games of last year. You go back, you threw on the tape. I kind of went through this little because I had this feeling that Aziz was going to have a big year. A lot of that had to kind of do with the conversations that I had with Emmanuel Mosley, and he's like, yeah, that's one guy you want to look at. So I'm like, okay. I went back and I looked, and you watch the last 2 games that he had. I think one was against Seattle, and I think the other was against the Cardinals, and he was flying. He was everywhere. And so you could see it. You see the baseline ability that he has. It's on tape and it just shows up all the time. And so this year, he has really, really been able to take that humongous step forward. And he's playing lights out. And so with Drake Greenlaw coming back, and it's always great to get players that are starters and have tons of experience in your defense coming back. But maybe there's an opportunity where Azeez Al-Shaair maybe sticks with kind of that number 2 linebacker spot, whether it's the primary Will or Sam, and whichever how they like to operate that. But maybe Al-Shaair stays. I think we talked about, some of the situation with Tart and Hufanga maybe keeping his spot. Well, I think Al-Shaair is in that kind of same boat as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, and Shanahan said as much. He said, I don't know if I can just turn it back over to both of these guys, which is unfortunate, right? Because obviously I'm a big Jaquaski Tart guy, but if that's what he wants, that's what he wants. And it is clear that he wanted to get Hufanga reps. But I think with the Azeez Al-Shaair, Dre Greenlaw thing, I don't even think it's much of a discussion at this point. I really don't think it's much of a discussion. I think that that's more clear and objective right away. The one thing that I will say that Dre Greenlaw does better than Azeez Al-Shaair is covering man. And that's not easy because he's a former safety. But Azeez Al-Shaair is better on run defense and better in zone. And that's 2 out of 3 things. And everybody just keeps pointing to the Arizona game. Okay, he had a bad game. Guess what? The entire defense had a bad game. The entire defense got worked in that game. And when you bring up Greenlaw's missed tackles, I will say this. You can't miss tackles if you're not in the right position to tackle. Best way I could put it. He makes the tackles when he's right there in front of him. He makes the tackles when he's right there in front of him. But if you're out of position, you can't even miss the tackle because you're not in position to make the tackle. And I think that's the best way to put it.
Absolutely. I wanted to show this picture from Azeez. I caught it on the 49ers Instagram story, but just look at this dude. I think Alex Tran, who runs the Niners Nation Instagram account, posted the actual clip. But it was essentially Darnell Henderson running to the left and Azeez Al-Shaair being like the missile that he is, coming downhill at 100 miles an hour and completely unloaded into Henderson, and his face mask got completely smashed. And I love it. This to me just makes me so happy. That's football to me. I love it.
And it's a good problem. It's a good problem to have. This isn't a bad thing. I mean, when you have a depth piece who's taking a step, and now you have guys who, were there before that can be depth, but you can rely on. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And just when you watch the tape, when you watch the games, Azeez Al-Shaair is always in the backfield making plays, aside from that one Arizona game. But he's been amazing this year, and he's been a joy to watch, and he's been taking that step.
Absolutely. What have your thoughts been on Fred Warner this year? Is he kind of taking steps forward? Do you think this game against the Rams was a good building block for him to kind of get back on track?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a little bit of it is overblown because of the contract, right? And best in the game, all that stuff. But this second half, that was Fred Warner. And that's kind of what you expect, So I think that it is a little bit overblown. Fred has said multiple weeks, I need to play better. That's what a leader does. Doesn't point the finger at anybody. So it is a good building block. I'm not going to get on Fred or anything like that. I've got people, on Twitter yelling about, man, overpaid. But relax. Just relax, man. It'll get there. It's fine. This defense as a whole is going through a bit of a transition phase with a new play caller. And it's not the same exact thing that they were running last year. Obviously, Fred is not as good in coverage this season as he was in previous years. But again, new system, you have to give it time. Still young. I'm not worried about Fred Warner. I think it'll be fine. But this second half was pretty much what you expected from Fred Warner going forward in this season. So I think it's a little bit overblown. It's just a little bit overblown because the guy has said as much every week. I need to play better. I need to play better.
Right.
And that's it. And he was juiced in the beginning of the game. I saw his pregame stuff, and he was hyped. He had Jeff Wilson going crazy. It's just
Yeah, he did.
it'll happen, man. It'll happen. And I think that the second half of this game was a good step for him.
100%. We've also talked a lot on these state of the franchise episodes about D'Amico Ryans. What are your thoughts on D'Amico Ryans, his performance in a must win game on prime time against I mean, you look at them on paper, one of the most high powered offenses in the league, led by Sean McVay. What was your thoughts of that coaching battle right there?
I thought Ryan was fine. I thought Ryans was fine, but I wanted to talk about something else, and I don't want this to be a slight at the defense or D'Amico Ryans. The Rams were pitiful.
Yeah.
Pitiful on Monday night. What is it about when they play the 49ers that they're so bad? Tyler Higbee had 2 drops. Yeah, Tyler Higbee had 2 drops. Cooper Kupp had 2 drops. Matthew Stafford's like throwing the ball. Well, Odell's down there somewhere and just throwing it up. Like, what is going on with when the Rams play the 49ers? Are the 49ers in their head that much? And these are some of the guys that haven't even been here for any of these games.
Right.
Like, Matthew Stafford doesn't know what this is like. If you would have blinked and you had no idea, like right. Well, let's say you were squinting, right? Let's say you were just squinting at the screen, and it kind of made everybody blurry. And you hear the guy go, interception. You'd be like, man, Jared Goff's having a bad game. What exactly about what Matthew Stafford did was different from Jared Goff? Why is it that every time the Rams play the 49ers, they play their worst games? I don't know. Again, I have no idea what goes on. So I'll give credit to D'Amico Ryans. I will, because they played a great game. It's great to have your guys back. Jimmy Ward cleaning up things on the back end. Nick Bosa can't get a hold call for his life. He can get caught in a chokehold, and they'll never get a call on that. I was a little concerned with the pass rush not getting there, and that was my concern, is that you kind of let them hang around. But the 49ers stomped that out when Kyle went for it on 4th down, and that was literally like the get up, run through a wall moment, because you know how I feel about 4th down, and then also to be that aggressive and step on their neck and effectively end that game. It was. I loved it. He smelled blood in the water. Yes. That's my coach. Yes. Right there.
There's the only Shans that we know.
That's it. That's it. But my problem is, what is up with the Rams, man? They play their worst games every single time they play the 49ers. I just don't get it, man. I really don't get it. It's baffling, man. Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, same thing, man. I don't know, man. I don't get it.
What I love too is that their new superstar pieces, such as Von Miller and OBJ, got completely indoctrinated into this weird mental tug and war, like you talked about. It was like two brothers like playing video games, and one's just like, I'm better than you, and I'm just going to be better than you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's just kind of what it feels like, right?
One more thing, Brad. That fake field goal, I was completely baffled. And that was a sign of a coach who was like, man, I've got to do something drastic here, because this field goal isn't going to work. We can't stop them on offense. Sean McVay, it's like, all right. It's like, remember in The Waterboy, when that guy, whenever he saw that one guy, he couldn't coach, and then he had the vision like babies and happy stuff, and all of a sudden he can draw plays and stuff like that. Like, Sean McVay
he had to like envision something nothing that's going to attack him, basically.
Right. So Kyle Shanahan is the guy who stole the green notebook. And Sean McVay,
and he just can't get over it.
And Sean McVay is terrified and shell-shocked when he looks on the other side and Kyle Shanahan's there, man. I don't know. It is so weird. I'm making a joke about it because I really have no logical way to explain it. Because and oh my God, and Troy Aikman, for you to come out and say, well, I felt like Matthew Stafford would try to force feed Odell Beckham the ball. Are you kidding me? Are you really about to blame that on Odell Beckham when that same offense looked the same way against the Tennessee Titans and Odell Beckham wasn't there? Like, literally everything is always Odell's fault. But it's just weird. What is up with the Rams, and why can they never play well against the 49ers? Sean McVay is just that coach from The Waterboy, man. And he's got to envision something different in Kyle Shanahan so he can get back to playing his game, because that fake field goal was indicative of a coach that was coaching terrified.
100%. And that mental thing, like we already talked about it with Brunskill against AD. It's just kind of there. Have it between the coaches. It's a wild situation. Obviously, there's different players that have been swapped in and out, but there seems to be that same type of vibe where the 49ers just have it's like Kyle has the headset on of the opposing team, and he's just playing with them, having a good time, doing whatever he essentially wants to do. And at that point, we're gonna let him do it. Were there any other defensive players that stood out to you? I know Arden Key came away with a sack. The pass rush has been a little up in the air. What is your thoughts on the D line right now?
They did enough, but the offense put this game away, put them in positions where they could, try to pin their ears back. They weren't really in too many tough positions, so it's hard to gauge. I thought the defense was fine. It wasn't some dominant effort, I don't think. Again, I think a lot of it had to do more with how bad the Rams were playing and the interceptions, the drops, all that stuff. They just looked out of sorts, and I don't know what it is about the 49ers that made them play like that. Defense was fine. Defense was fine. But the pass rush in other weeks, you're going to need that to pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. So turning the page a little bit and looking ahead to the Jaguars, do you think that this momentum, because again, we saw them come out against Chicago Bears, right? And that was, well, let's build on this momentum, build, 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 build. Yet they show up against the Colt McCoy led Cardinals and seemingly crash um, to the ground, but then have a resurgence again against the Rams. Do you think that we're in for more of this type of roller coaster type situation, or do we see more of a steady climb from here on out?
I don't think that there's going to be more of a roller coaster because a lot of what happened in that Arizona game was self-inflicted. When you turn the ball over 2 times on your side of the field, and then Cliff Kingsbury had a great game, and he kind of took D'Amico Ryans to the woodshed a little bit in terms of being able to exploit, knowing where to go with the ball, knowing that Tavon Wilson and Hufanga were there, and being able and making them putting them in bad spots and forcing them to make plays. I don't think that this is going to be the same. As long as the 49ers don't turn the ball over, I think that they kind of got back to what they should be doing. I would suspect a game where they run the ball a ton and that's it. I mean, it's just going to be that. And, again, you don't really have to worry about what the Jaguars do on the offensive side of the ball. It's not something where they're a high powered offense. Trevor Lawrence does not look good right now. James Robinson's a little bit banged up going into this
Yeah.
game. And, I just think that if the 49ers, can stick to what they did last week, I mean, I don't think that there's many teams that can beat them when they're executing in that fashion, and I think that they'll just stick with that, provided they're not turning the ball over. It's very hard to win games when you're turning the ball over and you're getting penalties. So I mean, as long as they don't do that, I think that there shouldn't be any roller coasters unless Kyle Shanahan goes away from the run, or and starts to put Jimmy Garoppolo in a spot where he has to throw the ball 30, 35 times because you're increasing that likelihood of those oh no Jimmy throws. Just keep it efficient. 2025. And I think they found something, what you said earlier. They found something from the gun. When you find new information and you realize that Jimmy Garoppolo is much more efficient from the gun, also, when you're worried about the pass rush, how better to keep you away from the pass rush by one, getting the ball out on time and putting him in shotgun. So I think that with all of the new information, Kyle Shanahan's kind of found something. The offense felt like it got into its groove, and I would expect that to continue on Sunday unless something drastic happens. So, I mean, there was a roller coaster going into this game for the season. And I was saying before the game, the one thing we know about the 49ers is that we don't know anything. But I think that this is going to be the game where things start to change in terms of their philosophy on offense and getting back to what we thought they would be.
Absolutely. And just really quickly, guys, my comments have seemingly broke. It's not showing any new ones. So if you guys are commenting or anything, I'm not ignoring you. Just I don't see any of them for
Yeah, if
whatever
you're calling me a
reason.
bozo, we can't see it.
We can't see it. Doesn't matter. Call us whatever you want. We can't see it. Who
Can't
cares?
see it.
So I would be absolutely insane to go through this entire episode without asking you about a certain player.
Mhm.
What did you think of Jimmy Garoppolo? I can't believe I completely skimmed over it. But tell me about what you saw from Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw no Trey Lance. We didn't see any Trey Lance warming up. I didn't even get the vibe that it was ever. Obviously, the game was pretty well in hand, at least on one side as it moved forward, and obviously built from there. Um, Do you envision a world where Trey Lance plays anytime soon, or do you just kind of see this is the plan that they have been telling us since training camp?
Not if the offense is rolling like that. You're converting on third down, which is something that you haven't done all season.
Huge.
In 2019, Jimmy was money on third down, but that's because you were on schedule on third down. It's easier, very easy, not very easy because it's the NFL. Much easier to convert 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, than 3rd and 9, 3rd and 15, and that's for any quarterback. You never want to be in those positions. So when the football is being run and it is putting you in third downs where it's very manageable, Jimmy is not asked to do so much, manages the game, executes the game plan, throws with anticipation. Here's the one thing that I took away from this game, because people want to post a little chart, that pass chart, like they're doing something, like, oh, look, he's still just throwing. Those were tight window throws. And he threw in anticipation. That 4th down throw to Deebo Samuel, that ball had to get out right there on time, and that is anticipation. There's still some skill to that. Again, you don't want to put too much on his plate. Don't ask him to go ahead and win you a game, because that's just not his strong suit. But when you ask him to
Fair.
execute the game plan and he has to manage the game, and you're able to run the ball, and you're not down, and you're not turning the ball over, Jimmy Garoppolo can be what you just saw on Monday night. And the 49ers can win games that way. And I don't think Trey Lance sees the field unless Jimmy falls flat on his face. This is 3 straight weeks of him being fine. He's been fine. That's it. He's not playing bad. Even the strongest Jimmy Garoppolo hater can't say that he's playing bad right now. He's not playing bad. And if they win games, then it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And what we want from Jimmy Garoppolo and what we've always wanted is just consistency. We want consistent Jimmy, consistent good Jimmy, right? We don't want the consistently inconsistent Jimmy, is what we seemingly have had for a lot of the year. So obviously that has its own situation regarding, how he plays and all that kind of stuff. But what we saw on Monday night, I saw a poised Jimmy. I saw a Jimmy that was confident. I saw a guy that was, like you said, making throws with anticipation, with touch. I saw pocket awareness from Jimmy Garoppolo. When I did my watch back, and I'm watching some of the, Tom Compton he was okay. He didn't get completely destroyed, but he got some pressure. He got pushed back a little bit, and Jimmy Garoppolo had to be aware of it in certain instances. And there was a couple throws where he got a nice little sidestep and he let it rip. And those are some of the things where Jimmy wouldn't typically sidestep and rip. He'd kind of sidestep and tuck, kind of a situation. And I think that translates into kind of the confidence that he was feeling and all that good stuff. But I think Jimmy Garoppolo, if he can keep that style of play going, we could absolutely be looking at a win against the Jags. Do you have any score predictions before we get out of here of what you have seeing against the Jags? Is it going to be a blowout? Is it going to be a close game? What do you kind of anticipate?
Well, before we get onto the Jag stuff, and you could probably hear Averly in the background. I think that's what's like you're probably thinking is why I gotta go, but she's actually having fun, so I'm good. Don't worry about that. But one more thing that I wanted to touch on before we get to the Jags game is that miracles do happen. Robbie Gould was good from 50. Sure shut me up. Way to go, pal. Way to go. Greatest day of my life.
We can't see the comments, so can't do nothing to us.
Greatest day of my life. Birth of Averly. Move over. Robbie Gould is good from 50.
Let's go.
No, so in terms of this, the 49ers cannot get complacent here. And I'm going to explain to you why. 2 weeks ago, the Jaguars beat the Buffalo Bills. Gave them fits. They played the Bengals tight. They just played the Indianapolis Colts to the gun. And the Colts jumped out to a huge lead. It looked like Jonathan Taylor was going to run for 9,000 yards in that game. He had 125 in the first 2 drives. And I was like, I'm playing against him in fantasy my season's over right here on this one, because this guy's about to rip it up for 400 yards. But they stuck in there and they find a way to stick around in games and play well, man. So look, again, 49ers across the country, 10 a.m. start for you Cali people, 1 o'clock for me, which is great. I love it. Get the game out of the way right away. Get to enjoy the rest of football for the rest of the day and not worry about it. But the 49ers shouldn't be taking this lightly. Having said all of that, the 49ers absolutely should win this game. It's just going to be a little bit closer than I believe anybody thinks. It should not be any blowout predictions, anything like that. Again, would love to be wrong, but at this point, it's going to be one of those games where the 49ers score about 28. But don't be shocked that the Jags put up 21. Hang around that game for a little while, and it's a lot closer than the score indicates.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Colt McCoy come out and have one of the best days of his life. Who knows if Urban Meyer takes a couple pages out of that playbook with Trevor Lawrence, a rookie quarterback. Maybe they get some quick passes out in the flat to Chenault and some other guys. Who's their starting wide receiver? Is it Laviska Chenault, who would be their wide receiver one? I believe DJ Chark is out with injury. I don't even think
Marvin
he's really
Jones.
Marvin Jones. And how is Marvin Jones really fit in? I know it made sense kind of when it happened. But how's he fit since have you been kind of paying attention to their
I
offense
have.
at all?
Yeah, I have. Because fantasy football, I watch everybody.
Hmm.
He's the target draw right there. He is, but they're not connecting. Him and Lawrence are not connecting right now. Lawrence is struggling. Like it's just not working for them right now. The
Right.
X factor on their team and the guy that the 49ers really need to look out for is Jamal Agnew. And it seems like Jamal Agnew is the guy that Laviska Shenault, we think Laviska should have been, because I was big on Visca, man. And
Same.
he's
Same.
in the backfield, playing wide receiver, fast as hell, can return kicks. Jamal Agnew has been that more than anything. So, yes, Marvin Jones, Shenault, Dan Arnold, their tight end, has been ripping it up. I believe he has it's the number is 80 yards, I think, in like 6 straight games or something like that. So him and Trevor have a
Mhm.
connection. This is the game where they're going to be tested, whether that's going to be Fred having to lock up with him or it's going to be Aziz Al-Shaair who has to get, on him. This is going to be a tough one because Dan Arnold has actually been playing very well lately. So they have some weapons, but again, James Robinson's a little bit banged up. You know what they want to do with him. I think he's a very underrated player. But Jamal Agnew and Dan Arnold are the two that really kind of scare me because they present problems because they can create mismatches with how well they're playing right now.
Absolutely. And also, too, if you flip to the opposite side of the football, 49ers offense versus their defense, they quietly have some good pieces on that defense. I mean, you touched on it a little bit before with the Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been playing pretty damn well this year. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to be interesting to see where he lines up. I believe he typically lines up on the offense's right side. So Compton, Jalen Moore, could be a long day at the office for those two. Um, I don't feel too bad if Jalen Moore is in there because I know Jalen Moore can hold his own in pass protection. I know I can feel somewhat confident about that. I can feel somewhat confident that Jalen Moore is going to be able to suffice in that role. We'll see what happens if it's a Tom Compton coming out again. The knee injury with Jalen Moore that he did suffer was not serious. There's no structural damage. So it's, again, another TBD with who's going to be starting at the right tackle position. So we'll see. But that matchup is going to be interesting to watch. Are there any other matchups on the defensive side versus the offense that you're looking at? Or is it just 49ers play their game like we saw against the Rams or however they got it drawn up? And they just go out and execute, and everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, slow down the pass rush by running the ball. Run the ball right at him, make him make tackles, and just put yourself in good spots on third down. You have to execute the way that you did in this game on third down, and we hadn't seen that all year. So when you're completing, getting those third downs are backbreakers mentally for the defense, right? They're trying to get off the field, and you keep making plays. I believe the 49ers had 4 on the first drive, which is almost just like, yeah, you can't stop us. 18 plays, you're not stopping us, and it's death by a million paper cuts. That's fine. But those long drives also keep your offense on the side of the field, but it also damages the defense and says, oh, man, I don't know. We're in for a long, long day. We can't stop them.
Yeah. So I like that plan. I think the 49ers have a good shot. But quickly, before we really take the turn, is there a path forward for this team in the playoffs? I know they're only a game out, uh, but do you see a path where they can actually make the playoffs? We'll talk about what happens in the playoffs once they make it. We won't go there, but do you think there's an opportunity for them now with this commanding win against the Los Angeles Rams? Do you think there's an opportunity for them to really put their sights on the playoffs?
There is, and the way that you do it is stop worrying about everybody else and stack your wins. Just win the games in front of you. I don't want to look down the schedule or anything like that, but the schedule does open up a bit. Not that that really means anything because you still have to go out there and execute, but there is a path. There is a path. I'm sorry if you hear Avery in the background. I'm trying to get her to chill, but she won't listen. But it is there for them. It's there right there in front of them because there is a Minnesota game coming up. They're right there in
Mhm.
the same hunt. You can also jump them. That's the thing is, if you take care of what you have to take care of, which is beat the team in front of you, then it doesn't matter what other teams do. You can get to 5-5. Once you get there and you start to stack wins and you start to roll a little bit, then it's all in front of you and you control your destiny. You don't need help from other people or other teams. That's it.
Right.
Never put your fate in other teams' hands. Stack your wins and move forward that way.
Absolutely. I think that is the best way to look at it. And hopefully that's what the 49ers do. They just take who's ever in front of them and they execute, play their game, get back to what they do best. And it's been phenomenal to watch them control the football. I think that was probably one of my favorite thing and biggest takeaways from that game was the time of possession battle, them just owning the clock and going on and on and on with that. Jason, before we break, is there anything else that you want to touch on? I know we got the Robbie Gould love out the way. Anything else that you would want to hit on before we head out, my guy?
Yeah, I kind of tweeted this, but if you have a 49er fan friend that is nitpicking this complete team win, cut them out of your life. Please. You don't need that sort of negativity. With everything that's been going on wrong, this is the game that you want to complain about? Come on, man. Seriously. The 49ers hadn't won a home game in almost 400 days, and you want to find a way to be negative? Just stop it. Please. Cut that person off. You don't need that negativity in your life. That's the last thing I'll say.
Facts. I love it. That's the best advice you can have. I mean, you're going to have a much better life as a football fan if you can just, understand those people, and we'll go in the other direction. I think that's absolutely great advice. Jason, as always, I thank you so much for your time. It's always a freaking blast. I could talk with you for hours about this team, but tell the people where they can find you: YouTube, Twitter, everywhere else. Let them know.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. And it would have been cool, if I wasn't, I'm straight up a lone dad from Tuesday to Sunday. So it's only Wednesday.
Hey,
So
you are a man of the people, the working man. He's doing it all, man. We see you. Your efforts. I'm sure if the chat was actually working, we'd actually see some love for Jason for being the hardworking man that he is. So make sure you go follow this guy, please.
Appreciate it. Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Jason Aponte 2103 and on YouTube, Jason Aponte, Sprint Right Option podcast on there with Andrew Pasquini. We gave Brad a nice little shout out on there when we were talking about Trent Williams. Yeah, so just this is gonna be a fun week, ramped up, and I'm starting to get back into the fantasy football start sit stuff. So Sunday, if you have questions around 12 o'clock when the inactives come out, pull up. Bring your chat, bring your questions to the chat, and we'll help you get some wins because now we're getting closer to the playoffs, and everybody's got to start winning some games now.
Absolutely. And I'm a huge fantasy guy. Huge fantasy guy. I ask Jason questions about start sit and things like that because this dude is freaking tapped in. And I'm not saying that just to hype my guy up because I like to hype my guy up. He's tapped in. So any fantasy football questions, please direct them at Jason. My guy will help you out. Also, another great reason to follow him on Twitter. But Jason, go be the great dad that you are. Thank you so much for your time, man. And we really, really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Brad. I'm gonna go get a drink too because I still have a few more hours until bedtime. She's been up since 6 a.m. Man, it's that's 3 a.m. Cali time.
Hey, I got 3 of them, so I know the vibe. Let's go, my guy. All right, until next time.
Appreciate you, bro.
Jason will be back with us next Wednesday after the Jags game, and we'll be hopefully talking about 2 in a row. Let's see if we get it. Until then, appreciate you guys as always.